Hi, I'm Sai, and you're watching Happy Accident Studios. These are my hands, and this is a new segment that I would like to call Just Messin. Right, so I've been doing a lot of projects lately, and I've got all these strips of scrap card stock lying around. And as you can see, I've got some silver here and some brown, and this dark green scrappage that you can see here is from my previous video. And that's Hoogie Nights 3. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out. Today I will be using my Sizzix Sidekick, which is a die cutting machine. It's a roller machine, and it is a little bit narrow, so your options are curtailed as far as what kind of dies you can put through here. But I've survived a pretty long time with just this. And this is the latest die set that I've bought for it. It is the word joy, and then there's a filigree overlay. So I'm going to try and cut the joy out of some silver cardstock and the filigree part out of a darker one and overlay it and see what happens. Now, this might seem a bit weird. I don't know, there's no sort of congruousness between my voice and what's going on here. This is a recording, and I am putting a narration over it. So let's see how this works. Who knows? What you're seeing right now are my cutting plates and a wiggly piece of foam which will aid in the embossing of the various parts. And these are just some spare bits of cardstock that I use as shims. Shims are used to alter the sort of thickness of what you're putting through. And finally, the Sizzix adapters, which are made to raise the level of a wafer thin die, which is what I'm using there. Now, the brand of die that I'm using at the moment is called Spellbinders. So the first thing I'm doing, as you can see, is I am placing the Sizzix adapter onto the bottom plate of the sandwich, and I'm placing the die cutting side up. Now I'm placing the card face down onto that cutting surface and placing the top back on. And as you can see, I am flummoxed by how easily it's going through the machine, and I'm wondering, what layers could I possibly be missing? Is it the shims? Let's try putting the shims in there, see what happens. Nope, it is still too loose. What could I be forgetting? Is it right in front of me? Yes, it is. It's the bottom sheet. So your sandwich consists of the bread, which is your two clear plates, one of which will be cut to ribbons. Every time you run it through, it makes an impression. So the roughed up one I like to keep as the one that it cuts into. So as you can see, I'm finally running it through. I've got the bread, which are my two clear plates. I've got my adapter. I've got my die and my cardstock. They've run through. And what I'm doing now is off camera, very conveniently, I am popping out the result. Here we are. We have silver letters. This is the part where I actually look at it and think, oh wow, it's already embossed. Do I need to try to emboss it again? Nah, probably not, but I'm gonna go through the motions anyway. No. So at some point I decide better of this and I continue on with it, but it's gonna be a while. So while we're discussing this, I thought maybe I'll explain a little further. I am toying with the idea of doing a live stream that would probably be on a weekly basis, just to keep things fun and allow some planning time in between. I'm planning on doing that on an app called Ustream, and a couple of my friends have been using it for a long time, so I thought I might try and give it a go. So, good idea, bad idea? Comment down below, let me know. It looks like I'm ready to start the filigree portion of the program now, because I've just picked up a piece of my green cardstock, and I am remembering how I layered it up. Yes, I'm remembering the bottom piece of the sandwich this time, the Sizzix adapter, the die cutting side up. I don't know if I said down before by accident, but I meant up. And then the paper needs to go, the side that you want to see needs to go facing the cutting die, because the die cuts into the paper from the top surface all the way down through. Put your top piece on and slide it on through. Rolling, 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 shaking the table like crazy. And it doesn't matter how much longer your piece of cardstock is, as long as your die is the smallest part of that sandwich and everything else kind of extends over it so that the pressure is applied to the entire die. Everything will come out just fine. And you can use the end of that paper for your next cut. And so quite often I don't even bother cutting it apart. I just line them right up and crank them right through. Now, this is a more complicated die, so what you're going to see is me fiddling about with it, trying to remove all the little bits. But before I do that, I'm going to emboss it, because this one's got lots of little bits that are going to stick up, and it's just, the more detail you can put onto this, the better. I am again having trouble with my sandwich, because it's been a while since I've used this machine, I have to admit. Here come the shims. Yep. The shims, the die with the paper in it. I wonder if the riser's still on there. I know something's been taken out, because otherwise it wouldn't even crank through properly. And it is. So, you've got to experiment with these things, because there's such a mixture of manufacturers and brands and things like that out there now, that each machine's going to be different. And I'm using a certain brand of machine, which is Sizzix, and I'm using a certain brand of dies, which is Spellbinders. And they were not manufactured to work together, but people have come up with ways that they can, because let's face it, we're not going to stick to just one brand of craft tool, are we? We like to have options. So I happen to think Spellbinders is one of the highest quality dies out there, and it's good to be able to use that with whatever machine you happen to have. So I am currently using a biro, which is a ballpoint pen to those of you who speak other languages, and I'm just poking out the larger of the pieces that don't need to stay in the finished design. Poking, poking, poking. Poking, poking, poking. And brushing them off. Because they're a bit like, have you ever heard of a hanging chad? Well, they're all basically hanging chads until you brush them off the bottom. They do punch really well, but they're, kind of hard to get out, because you've got to be able to poke through this very delicate stencil with something metal. Now, they make tools to do this with. I just can't find mine right now, and so I just grabbed whatever I had to hand, because I'm not prepared today. And that thing just happens to be a ballpoint pencil. Pen. Ballpoint pen. You'll see me rummaging around in a minute, because I've finally got to what the pen will not get through, and I'm actually going to need something else. That something else is what a lot of people in the industry refer to as a pokey tool, or a piercing tool, or a pricking tool. And they're all basically the same thing. They're a needle on a stick. And that's really what you need for this kind of thing, because there are smaller holes in the design. Oh, look, I'm trying to use tweezers now, and it's stuck in the hole. I remember when that happened. That was fun. The lovely squeak and creak of metal against metal. Ugh, it reverberates through your teeth. But I managed to dislodge the tweezers, and I believe my next tool of choice was an X-Acto knife, I think, and or a craft knife, or a 10-blade, or whatever it is you want to call it. And I am now poking around with a craft knife, and I should be sliding that back into shot any minute now. Unless I forgot you were there. There you are. And there's the X-Acto knife. what I'm doing now is I'm reaching into the smaller holes and lifting a small portion of the design out of the die. Once I've got hold of it, I'm going to pull it free. And all of my hard work has culminated in this lovely piece of filigree, ever so neatly cut by the Spellbinder's die. And all that remains is to look for any stragglers, any little pieces that don't belong on there, and get them away. So that's what I'm doing right now. Is it looking good? Oh, no, I found something else. This looks so nice in the end, you just don't even think about the fiddliness and how long this is taking. Honestly, if you had to cut this by hand, you'd be there for hours. I do honestly love this whole die cutting thing. I've tried many different kinds of die cutting, and I really like them all, to be honest. But recently, I have expanded my collection, let's say, and my upcoming Christmas present is a new Cuttlebug V2, and that means that I get to use larger dies, which I'm very excited about. Okay, so what I've done now is I have laid the overlay face down, so it's backwards. Can you see the J, how it's backwards? I've laid that down on a sheet so that you can see the contrast, and I'm just dotting some of my famous Kalal glue on it in as small pieces as I possibly can. The silver card that's going to go on top of it is not very absorbent, so it is going to make a slight little bit of a mess. What I recommend is using a very fine tip crafter's glue, and do make sure it dries clear. I'm not entirely sure that this Kalal dries entirely clear, but what I'm doing is I'm placing it in very small beads around the area of the letter, and now I need to stick that down gently and without too much squishing around onto it. And am I going to reveal this right now? Let's have a look. Yes, I am. Oh, that looks great. Yay. You can see a little bit of the glue has escaped out the sides, and you know, that's my mistake, and it's not, you know, this isn't about being perfect. I mean, you know, forgive me for a minute because I'm going to get on a soapbox here, but we need to ditch the perfectionism. This is a fun thing, and honestly, if you go in expecting perfection, you know, as the saying goes, you will always be disappointed, and I'm a really big supporter of that. I think that we just need to get on with it, you know, treat it as a lesson learned, and maybe choose a different product next time, but that's what this is all about. This is a learning process for everyone, and really making your own mistakes and doing your own experiments is the best way that you can possibly learn. So it's down goes the O time. Oh, there's a lot of moving there. But hey, someone's gonna love this, right? I wonder what I'm gonna make it into. Actually, I already know, because I'm recording this later and I've already made it, and you've probably seen the finished product on the thumbnail for this video. I'm doing the same thing with the Y. I know this is a little bit tedious, but imagine sitting at a table doing this in a room with a bunch of other friends who are also doing this, and that's the environment that I work in quite a lot. So it really does take some of the monotony out of all of this very fine work. And I do recommend joining a craft club because it is so much fun. I love sitting around chatting with my friends, and you know, it gets serious sometimes, the conversation, sometimes it gets really funny, sometimes we share, you know, quite emotional things with each other. We're really quite a support group. And joy is what I find when I'm hanging around with my friends in the craft club. So if any of them are watching this now, and I do hope they are because I tell them about it ad nauseum. Hi, and I'm so glad that you're all a part of my life, even if it is only for, you know, an afternoon once a month, if that. So that is the joy die complete. Now the next thing that I'm going to bring out is a Marianne D's bow die. Now, I've done a video about making bows before, and what I used before was an electronic cutting machine file, because I also have an electronic cutting machine, and I cut out the bows from that file and I assembled them on the video. Well, this is kind of the same thing, except that it's actually a little bit more interesting. I saw this in the shop and I thought, yeah, that's a twist that I can get behind. I really like this a lot. Check out Marianne D's. Her dies are recognizable by being painted blue. Not sure how or if it affects the cutting of it, but nevertheless, I do have it. Now, what am I doing here? Ah, I'm being good and I'm putting my dies away, aren't I? Wow. No, that actually is impressive. I'm putting my dies away. What I do is I use a DL envelope document wallet, and I use A4 sheets of magnetic sheet cut into thirds, letter size, and then I take the plastic popper that comes on the wallet and I actually take that popper off because it helps it to lie flat in my storage box, and the dies stick to the metal sheet, and not the metal sheet, the magnetic sheet, and they just store quite happily in the box on the sheet. So that is what I'm doing at the moment. If you saw a pause there before I put this down onto the sheet, what I was doing was just ensuring that all of the paper scraps have indeed been removed from the die. And now that they have, in they go with the storage. I just use a piece of Scotch tape to hold it shut, really, because it's easy and it's replaceable and it lies flat. It's not like a bit of blue tack or anything like that. So, onto the Marianne's die. That is what it looks like. So, you can see that the piece on the very left, if you watched my other video, the piece on the very left is what's different between this die and the cutting pattern that I used previously. And this is going to add a slightly more 3D layer to the bow. Wait to see. It's really cool. Now, all I'm doing now is I'm just sort of searching through my little packet of scraps that I just happen to have at the side of the table to see what I can use to cut these out of, because the smaller shapes are very, very good for using up your scraps. Looks like I found two pieces that I want to use. So now I have to decide which goes on the top and which goes on the bottom. I'm guessing the one that goes on the bottom is going to be the red one. So I must take my dies out of my lovely folder and make sure all my plates are out and everything before we start. And that's what I'm doing right now. Oh, the silence. There won't be this kind of silence if I'm doing a live stream. Honestly, I'll probably be looking at the chat because a live stream has chat next to it. So I'd be able to look and see if anyone's asking any questions or making any comments. And generally what you do is you read these comments out and you answer back and you say hello to people. And it's quite a kind of cool thing to do, actually. If you want to meet up and just see what I'm up to in my craft room on a day, then I would welcome you with open arms. I would be very interested to see how many of you would like to see that happen. So please do comment, or even just go to my website, send me a message, Facebook page, Twitter, Vine, Pinterest, Instagram, whatever. You know how to contact me. So, looks like I've got the very bottom of the die set, and I am putting it into my sandwich. I would like my pieces to be red, not this squares pattern, so I put the red side facing the cutting side. In goes the sandwich. Have I remembered everything this time? Looks like it. And through we go. Now at this moment, I actually don't know what that teeny tiny little rectangle's for. I have my ideas, but I actually didn't end up using that little thing. So maybe next time I'll have a go and see exactly what the results are like if you do use it. But until then, oh, now we need to cut the bow portion. The actual pretty bow portion. So I'm fumbling around for the other part of my die. There it is. Hello. So that's going to go on top of the bottom clear plate, the Sizzix adapter, and finally the other piece of scrap. I probably should have used the yellow one for this because I had more of it, but we live and learn, as I said before. Let's crank that baby through. Sometimes I honestly think the operating of these machines needs 3 hands, because while I can actually hold the top of the machine with my fingers and push the other length through with my thumb, if I'm using a longer die, such as a 12-inch one, I'm not going to be able to do that. And so I have to, it just looks really funny when I try and do it. Maybe I ought to film that sort of side on so you can see how I do it, but it's actually quite awkward. Ah, here is the special top layer. This is what puts the lovely, fantastic 3D twist onto this already 3D bow design. I really love it. This has little star cutouts in it. Same sandwich as before, and yeah, that's what they call it, a sandwich. The series of plates that you need to put together to put through your die cutting machine is called a sandwich. So I am pushing my sandwich through and it doesn't seem to want to go. And I have a feeling that it's because things aren't lined up properly. So off of the camera there, I am sort of manhandling it all into a slightly different position to see if the machine will take it. Lovely stuff. And there it goes. Sometimes these machines take a little bit of coddling and a little bit of sort of... Now I've lost the word. I don't know what word I was meaning to say there. But anyway, there it is. It's been cut. It's got these little star cutouts in it, which I am again going to have to find something sharp to poke them out with. Joy of joys. And there's me thinking that's focusing, but it's actually not. It was better close up. Give up, sigh. There we go. Now, if I was a smart person and I was very, very super organized, what I would definitely be doing here is saving all these cute little stars to sort of, I don't know, maybe sprinkle over some other kind of design. But you know what? Honestly, life's too short. I did end up just scooping them off my work surface and throwing them away. I'm sorry, little stars, but there really is a limit to what you can keep as scraps for later use, I think, and this is just really towing the line. I can't be keeping those teeny little things. They're cute, but no. And I've also found that there is a whole load of little tiny circles that I also need to punch out of this die. Now, it's all for effect, and it is all very worth it in the end. So, you know, doing this, again, it's just sort of accompanying a fantastic conversation you're having with your friends, or allowing you to just be in the quiet with your thoughts or try to clear your head. When someone says that a repetitive task like this is therapeutic, I think that's what they mean. They mean that it gives you time to let your mind wander. And I think that people who are all go, who have got constant appointments all the time and stuff, they just need this special time for themselves to just relax And it doesn't take much thought. You know, is there a hole there? Yes. Get rid of it. It's a very simple thought process, and you just do it. And when you're done, you end up with something lovely. I suppose really if you found this and you're watching it and you're this far in and you're still watching it, then clearly I'm preaching to the choir, but welcome anyway. Welcome to the insanity that is sanity. I do love it. Still poking holes. See, if I was PewDiePie, I'd have something cool to say right now. Right? I don't really have anything cool to say, although I am currently thinking about how I'm going to mask the gunfire from this video because I was watching Sons of Anarchy while I was doing this. Oh, and here we are, the reveal of the top layer of what is going to be our lovely red and gold bow. Now, the cool thing about this particular die that I bought is that it brings back into operation some of my older craft supplies that I've sort of pushed to one side. These old supplies in question are my brads. Brads are decorative split pins, and they're not like your office supply split pins. They're on a smaller scale, so that you can use them decoratively, and you'll see in a minute when I bring it out. There are the brads. They are from Making Memories, and I believe they are pewter square brads. I have quite a few brads in my collection, but these were the ones I had to hand, so these are the ones I'm using. Not very attractive, taking out one singular brad from a box, but there you go. Now what I'm going to do, yep, there's the split pin there. I'm going to use this brad to hold everything together. Every layer of this die that I've just cut out has got brad holes in it. So first I take the top layer and just stick it through the middle hole. And then I take the middle layer and stick that through the hole. And this is where we start to 3D this bow. We take the layer we just put on and we fold each side onto the brad as well. And the same with the other layer. So that's what I'm doing slightly off camera here. I think I was more interested in what was on the TV, to be honest. Sorry about that. I do apologize. Like my fingers. I don't. I've always had baby hands. Okay, so here's the bottom layer of the bow. That is the last thing to go onto the brad. And then the pin is split and flattened out. Oh, but first I'm holding it up to show you what it's gonna look like when I've finished fiddling with it. Yeah, that's very nice. Off we go. It's also important to make sure that the brad is rotated in the correct direction so that when you do flatten out the split pins, they don't actually show from the back. So do get that orientation correct before you fold out your pins. Or just slightly after, like I did. It might be good to separate the pins but don't fully flatten them until they're rotated properly. And there it is. Isn't that cute? Oh, I do love it. Look at that. Aw. Sorry about the shadow on my camera wire. And my slippery butterfingerness. But there you go. That is the bow, and that is the joy die. And I will be putting the joy die onto a project, which you will see on the thumbnail for this video. Haven't used the bow yet, but it is sitting here for me to admire. I can't wait to make some more. Thanks for joining me. I've been Sai. This has been Happy Accident Studios. Bye-bye.